Hi everyone, welcome back to Almost Normal. Whew! Alright, this week has been kind of insane. I have never been so busy in my life. And I don't know if the busyness of my life has been affecting my mental health. I'm sure it has. But I have been fighting the body image demons this week so badly. And I don't know what is going on, but recently I have just been absolutely destroying myself mentally about the way I look. And I can't seem to do anything to get my mind off of that. I wake up and I think about the way I look. I'm very rarely giving myself compliments. Typically, I try and tell myself what I love about myself in that day, but I have been really struggling with that recently. And I kind of wanted to talk about it today because I don't think I'm alone in this. I feel like everything that we fight with in our minds makes us instantly feel alone and isolated, like immediately. Every time I'm really struggling with anxiety or my body image or anything like that, I immediately think that I'm the only one that feels this way. I'm the only one that's going through it. No one else understands. I go out of my house, I look at everyone else walking around me, and I think these people have it all going on. Like, no one is worried about anything, it's just me. I see these people walking down the street smiling, and I'm like, they don't have a worry in the world. Like, I'm all alone in this. I feel shitty, and no one else feels shitty, and I know this is not true. I'm just not alone, and I have been feeling very, very isolated this week with my thoughts. And so I just felt, let's talk about this today, because I know I'm not the only one. In my deep heart of hearts, I know I'm not the only one that has these thoughts. And so I would love to remind anyone else that's going through this, you are also not alone. We're going through this together. And it's common and it's horrible and annoying. And I just want to talk about the things that I do to try and help myself and the things that make it worse and where I feel like my body image problems stemmed from. I did one episode before where I talked about how my body changed in sobriety. And I think I really deeply struggle with that still, how different I look to how I looked when I was using drugs and alcohol. And another picture popped up of me because I think in that episode I started talking about this subject because I had seen an old picture of me come up on my phone and it really triggered something in me. And I think the same thing happened again. I saw an old picture of myself and I looked very, very different. And that really kind of sent me into a spiral about how I look now. The other night, I also went to a concert of this band that I used to listen to all the time as a child. Not as a child, as a teenager. Me and my best friends would listen to this band all the time. We were obsessed with them. And one person in the band who I remember idolizing as a child, remember thinking that they were the coolest person in the entire world. I saw them perform and they are very, very thin. And I got that feeling again where I felt as if I was like idolizing this person again because of the way that they looked. And I felt like my old teenage self all over again, except a few pounds heavier than I was when I was a kid and having these same thoughts. Now I'm an adult and I'm bigger. I'm definitely heavier than I was when I was that age. And I'm looking at this woman on the stage who's tiny and I'm idolizing her again. And I've gone back to me as a teenager, wanting what I don't have. I was at the concert and I was thinking about how I wasn't going to eat anything for the next week because I wanted to look like her so badly. And the whole concert, I was thinking about food. And I hadn't eaten dinner that night. And I was thinking about how happy I was that I didn't eat dinner and how I'm not going to eat dinner tonight. And that'll start me looking just like her, and just like extremely toxic, horrible thoughts going through my mind. And they were making me excited, and that's what freaked me out the most. Like, I was thinking about how, oh, if I can control this, if I just control myself for the next week and I don't eat anything, or if I eat just very little, I was like, maybe if I just eat cucumbers for the rest of the week, like, I'm going to be able to look a bit more like her. And I was getting like actually genuinely excited about these feelings and thoughts. And that really started to freak me out. And then I went for brunch yesterday, and on Sunday brunch, I allow myself to give in to my desires and cravings because it's Sunday. I had a long week of school. I am proud of myself, of everything that I've done. I typically want to treat myself on the weekend, you know, and this is not me saying that I really restrict myself strongly on the weekdays either, but on the weekend, I'm just like, I don't want to have these thoughts. I don't want to be holding myself back from enjoyment. Like, I'll typically get pancakes, or like we were at the farmer's market and I was thinking and getting excited about all of the cute like delicacies that I could get there. And then I started to remind myself again of these thoughts that I was having at the concert, and it kind of just like rushed back at me. And I started to feel very, very negatively about all the things that I would be excited to eat, and how if I eat those things, I'm not going to look like this girl that I saw at the concert the other night. And that was really a upsetting moment. I sat at the table and I ordered a side of scrambled eggs with vegetables, and I really, really, really wanted pancakes, and in the end I ordered one and ate half of it. And I was thinking about it for the rest of the day. The fact that I ate like half a pancake, I was sort of going over and over in my head, like, why did I do that? I didn't need that. And it was just taking over my mind, and it was making me feel so sad, but I couldn't help but think about it the whole time. I unfortunately am someone that thinks about what they eat and how they look a lot. I have a few theories about why this is, but I do find myself thinking these thoughts a lot. However, they're not usually this intense, and just like my OCD, I have my moments where I can sort of just brush past them and not really give in to them, and I feel very strong and able to ignore them and remind myself that I am stronger than my negative thoughts are. But I go through moments where I find it extremely difficult to fight off these feelings, and I just give in to them, and I just listen to my brain, and I do all the stuff it tells me to do, even if I don't want to. Just like my OCD, sometimes I'm really, really good at fighting the urges, but sometimes I'm really bad at it. And sometimes I just find it easier just to give in to the thoughts. And that goes the same with my eating thoughts and my eating habits. I have moments where I'm really, really good at saying, Rita, you're beautiful, like, don't be silly. And those thoughts sort of just like wash past me. And then I get into these moments of life where I start to just give in and believe everything my brain is telling me, and that is when things kind of go wrong. And I feel like this past week I've definitely been feeling that. I think a combination of just seeing that older picture of me when I was younger, plus seeing this performer on stage who I used to idolize because she looked a certain way, and then seeing her again. I hadn't even really listened to their music in such a long time. I just saw that they were playing near my house, and I was like, oh my god, that's so crazy, like, let's go see those people play. So I think it was like a combination of those things, like, kind of set my mind off on this like roll of negative thoughts about how I looked and how I felt about myself. And thinking about eating and how much I eat, and at brunch the other day I was like, oh my god, I must eat so much, because when I was younger I was hungover a lot and I never really ate that much, and now I like eat 3 times a day. Like, that's too much food, you know? And I'm just like having these crazy, horrible, very, very negative, toxic thoughts, and I'm finding it really hard to get over them. I think it's important to remember that no matter what you look like, if you see people who you think are beautiful, if you see people who have the body type that you want, and you hear that they are having like body image issues and are not loving how they look, I think it's really important to remember that everyone feels this way, and to not judge those people and say, oh, well, you look so gorgeous, like, how could you feel this way, like, blah, 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 blah. Everyone feels this, no matter what you look like. Everyone has moments where they feel negatively about their bodies and about just the way that they look, or not even about their bodies, about their face, about their hair, about their height, like literally anything. And I think it's really important to be so graceful to everyone who's feeling this, and not to say like, oh, well, you are skinnier than most people, so how could you feel this way? Or, well, you have these really great breasts and everyone would love those, so how could you feel negatively about yourself? Like, I think that's really toxic, and I think that's not the way to react to other people who are kind of struggling with their body image. I don't think that's right to say like, well, I wish I looked like you and I don't, so like, what do you have to complain about? Like, I think that's really quite a negative way of reacting to people who are struggling with that. So I don't know, I just don't think it's the most empowering way to react to someone who is letting you know that they are struggling. And I definitely have had those thoughts before where people were like, my friends who I think are absolutely gorgeous, like nothing wrong with them, absolutely flawless, they sort of say certain things about their bodies, and in my mind, I catch myself going like, how could they feel this way? They are so beautiful. And it's like, yes, they are beautiful, but they feel this way. And I think that invalidating their feelings by saying like, you're ridiculous, like you look great, I don't think is the most helpful. So anyway, I just want to say that really quickly. I have really been trying recently to appreciate everything that I do have and not just want what everyone else has. And I kind of touched on this the other day where I was talking about like the power of being grateful. And when I was talking about it then, I was sort of more referring to, having a home and getting an education and these small things that we should all be grateful for that we sort of probably look over a lot. And I was saying that I feel like I'm at my worst when I'm constantly focused on everything I don't have and I'm not focused on the things that I do have, and how when I'm in a bad place mentally, I am always looking at people and wishing I had what they had and wishing I looked how they looked. And I'm spending no time telling myself all the great things about myself or being grateful for all the privileges that I have. That's when I get myself into a really sticky position. But I spoke a bit about this in another episode, but again, I was like more referring to learning to be grateful for all the stuff that you have that like a lot of people do not have, and becoming content in yourself and in your life. I think that when we're living and we're constantly reaching out for other things and feeling like the grass is greener on the other side, it impacts us mentally so negatively. It causes us to be unsatisfied all the time. We are never happy or content. We're never satisfied because we are constantly reaching for stuff that other people have. And I was kind of saying that the thing that I do to try and stop myself from doing that is when I wake up in the morning or before I go to sleep, I will write a gratitude list and I will list a bunch of things that I am grateful for, that I have, that I probably look over every single day, like a cup of coffee. I probably don't really appreciate that properly. A warm bed to sleep in. I probably don't really appreciate that. That's probably just something that I'm used to and I just use and don't think about. And that's something to be really appreciative for. A lot of people don't have a bed to sleep in. A lot of people don't get a warm cup of coffee in the morning. To have a shower, to be able to be clean, just things like this. And I find that like listing them down and writing them and physically seeing myself write them allows me to really appreciate them way more, because I feel like I just overlook everything that I have in my life. Having a loving family and a loving husband and all of that, like I feel like I overlook that and become ungrateful for those things all the time. And if I'm not super careful, I will become very unhappy and discontent because I will be constantly wanting and wanting and wanting, and I won't be like grateful and happy about what I already have. And it's really hard to be happy if you're constantly chasing something. It's really hard to be content in that way. And so anyway, I think that something I've been trying to work on recently is doing that, but body image wise. I have new insecurities about myself every week. I find something to dislike about myself all the time. Something new. I'll get over one thing, or I won't even get over one thing. I'll just add to the list of things that I dislike about myself. Just like how I don't appreciate the things that I own and the things that I have around me, I also don't appreciate anything about how I look that I like. And I become extremely ungrateful for how privileged I am, and I focus only on what everyone else has that I want. And it makes me a resentful, nasty person because jealousy is a disease. And when I'm looking at people who have something I want, especially when it comes to body image, all I can think about is putting them down so that I can feel better than them, just because they have something that I want, like a really skinny waist or really long, beautiful hair or clear, acne-free skin. And I am forcing my brain to start hating on them to make myself feel better. You know, like I'll see a girl who has the body I want and I'll just start saying negative things about that person in my head, which aren't true, just so I can sort of feel better about the fact that she has the body I want. So I can be like, well, she might look like that, but she's a bitch, you know? She might look like that, but she doesn't make very good art or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, just like saying such untrue things and negative things about people around me who I'm jealous of, and I hate being that person. I think that it's really hard to be like an empowering feminist when you're constantly walking around wishing you had what other women had, and because you don't have what other women have, you're like putting them down. Like, that is not the type of person that I want to be at all, and I'm typically not that person because I'm typically checking myself all the time for that, doing things like writing gratitude lists, by reaching out to other women to try and being a service to other women. But when I get into that zone, when I get into that negative, bitchy zone, I am so unhappy with myself, and I am in that right now. And I find that it makes me unhappy in every aspect of my life as well. And it's all because I am not doing the work and I don't feel content in myself. To villainize other women because you're jealous of them is not feminist. It is not empowering to women, and I want to live in a world where women empower women and not shut each other down. And that just goes to show that when people are negative towards you, when people are bitchy towards you, when women are rude to you, it typically comes from a place within the person that's being a bitch. Because I find that when I'm content with myself, when I'm happy with myself, when I'm telling myself I'm beautiful and I'm writing gratitude lists and being appreciative of everything I have, I notice that I am the nicest person to others in those moments. And when I let myself spiral and I let myself tell myself that I'm ugly and I want what other women have and I don't feel like I'm being grateful for everything I do have, that's when I feel like I'm becoming a nasty person to others. And I hate that about myself. And then it makes me hate myself even more because I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to be negative and judgmental to other women. Like, that is not who I am. But sometimes it just naturally comes out. And it's so hard to fight sometimes. I just wrote some notes. It's like, yeah, the cycle of comparison and like the mental toll of comparing yourself to others, especially when it feels impossible to escape. Like, that is just what I have been kind of feeling like I've been going through recently, and it's awful. It's like I literally feel like imprisoned in my mind and I can't seem to get out of that cycle. I think that different things get affected when I'm in these mental cycles. And I think this time I'm like super focused on the things that I'm eating and just like overthinking all my food choices. And I really hate being in those cycles because it kind of becomes the only thing you ever think about. And it's really hard to enjoy anything or think about anything else because food is such an overriding topic in your life. Not topic, but food is such a prevalent thing in people's lives, as it should be. It's fuel, it's what you need. You literally can't live without it. And so it's kind of a constant thought in people's minds anyway. And I think about food a lot and I adore food. Eating is my favorite thing to do. And I wonder if my mental state when it's not doing so good likes to punish me the worst. And the worst punishment it could give me is make me feel bad whenever I eat. Because as I don't drink or do drugs anymore, I have really become very dependent on food making me feel good. And one of the things that I appreciated getting sober the most was that my love for food was able to come back, because when I was drinking and using, I found it really hard to eat at all, which is why I was so thin back then. And I definitely glamorized that whole like heroin chic look of being really, really skinny and messy and kind of looking like I just came out of the club all the time and wearing a lot of black and just being very, very thin. And something I just absolutely love about being sober is that I'm able to like sit and enjoy a meal without wanting to throw up, which is great. So when these sort of mind cycles come back and I feel like I'm overthinking everything I eat, it's just so rubbish, because I worked really, really hard to be this person who was absolutely like food free and happy. And so when I sort of like regress back into this sort of like teenage mindset where I'm just so obsessed with being small, it feels like a real blow, because I just tried so hard and I've been working so hard on not being in that mindset. There are a couple reasons why I believe that thinness was kind of ingrained in my brain at such an early age. And I'm still trying to, and I'm still finding it hard to shake those thoughts, obviously. One big reason, I believe, for being so obsessed with my appearance is that I grew up in the fashion world. Literally grew up in the fashion world. I have a mother who is a model, and I have a father who is a fashion photographer. And I love my parents extremely. I love them very, very much. But growing up in that world is extremely toxic, because you have a mom who's obsessed with her own looks, and you also have a father who's obsessed with the looks of women, because he is trying to find a certain type of person to be in his photographs. And especially back then when I was growing up in the early 2000s, like positive body image was not huge. We were not really seeing a lot of it. A lot of people just still were in that mindset that thin was best. And so I grew up with a lot of images of very, very thin, very photoshopped, beautiful women around my house all the time. And I compared myself to those people all the time. And I don't think I've quite gotten over that, even though society has come such a long, wonderful way where we are really being positive towards every body type. I still feel like I have to fight those thoughts a lot that I got when I was 5 years old, or whenever I first became conscious of whatever was going on. But I know that body image was a big thing for me from a very, very, very early age. I was a very thin child naturally, and I always remember loving that. And I think it's been really hard for me to overcome those thoughts, and even at the age of 26, I am still figuring it out. And I think that a lot of people, like hearing other people's stories, views, and ideas on positive body image has been really helpful to me. And having social media there to allow me to hear other people's stories has been so helpful to me, and it makes me feel much less alone. And so I really appreciate that. And it's kind of also why I make my own videos, because I know how helpful these types of videos have been for me from other people. But it is a long journey. It is a journey that I think I'll be on forever, because I have great times and then suddenly I go into these sort of mental cycles, which I'm in right now, and I find it really, really hard to get out of them. And they pop up, a few times a year, and it's really a struggle to snap out of it. But I do feel like talking about it is quite helpful. I talk about it a lot in AA, actually, because I go to a lot of women's meetings, and, it's crazy how basically every woman I've ever spoken to has had some issues with body image. And talking to a lot of men, some have, but not all of them. But I don't think I've ever spoken to a girl who struggles with the way that she looks. And I think there's such judgment on women and their appearance in the society, and it's insane. But I've been talking to a lot of other women about it, and it's definitely making me feel a lot better. But yeah, I think that my childhood really, really affected the way that I saw myself. And I think I compared and judged myself from like the age of 5 years old. Like as early as I could think properly, I was definitely putting judgment on myself for how I looked. And when I was growing up, I had terrible acne, and that was a very big concern for me, because I would see all these images that my dad had taken, or images of my mom, or just like other models. And I noticed that all of them had completely clear, beautiful skin, and I did not. I had really, really terrible acne growing up. And that was my biggest insecurity for such a long time. And then as I got older, just my insecurities just would sort of change. And, if my acne cleared up, it would be how thin I looked, and if I felt fine about that, it would be how long my hair was, or how big my lips were, or sort of like how, I don't even know what you call this, but I would always be insecure about how my chin slightly slopes down to my neck and it's not like a cut 90-degree angle. Like that was always a big thing for me that I thought about. It just kind of never ended. It was like always something. I would get over one thing for a second and then it would be replaced by something else. I will say in my sobriety, I have worked so hard on being a positive person about myself, because I am unable to be a positive person to other people if I'm not positive to myself first. And if I'm unhappy with myself, I find it extremely hard to be of service to other people. And that's when I get the most joy, is being there for others. And so when that's like kind of taken away from me and I feel unable to do that, that sort of feeds the negative feelings inside my brain, and it becomes this whole spiral, and I find it very, very hard to escape it. And I'm going through it right now. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. It's really, really difficult. It's really difficult. My mom is still a model and I still love her. But again, like, she'll always think about the way she looks. Always, because she also grew up in the fashion world, so she'll probably never get over that, and I don't want my kids, if I were to have a girl one day, I really don't want that to be passed down to her, because I know that all those fears of not liking the way that you look, I know a lot of that came from my mom, and I wasn't brought up with the most body positive family. But anyway, yeah, I think that it's like an ongoing thing that I'm gonna have to deal with. And I think that something about social media that's really wonderful is that I can reach out to like-minded women and I can hear their stories, and it makes me feel much less alone. And even reaching out to people who also had fashion industry parents, that's not something that I even considered other people experienced, which is insane, because obviously a lot of people in the fashion world have kids, and those kids are probably in their 20s now and probably thinking the same way I'm thinking. And I actually got to talk to a bunch of women really, really recently, actually, just by, what am I trying to say? Just by complete chance. I literally just brought up the fact that I was sort of struggling, and I think that having model parents didn't really help that. And I got responses from people who just happened to be in the same conversation circle as me, saying that they are the same and they grew up with a model mom as well, and they have all the same thoughts and feelings. And I think that just communication between people is like the best medicine for anything you're going through, anything mental, especially because mental health makes you want to isolate. It makes you want to stay quiet, and it makes you feel isolated, because mental illness has this incredible way of making you feel like you're the only one that experiences these things. And I think that the biggest fight against mental illness is talking and communicating with other people and sharing your experience and having other people listen to your experience and listening to other people's experience. And I think that every time I do that, every time I'm feeling in a bad mental place, every time I'm feeling like I'm in a bad mental place, I can feel myself becoming more and more relieved the more I discuss what's going on with other people, and the more I hear other people's stories and get different perspective on things. And so that is what I'm really, really trying to do at the moment. It's not easy, and also the human mind is very, very strange. And I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but if I ever hear anything negative about me, I'll believe it 100%. I will not question that thing that person said if it's negative towards how I look or how I am, or if I'm annoying or whatever it is. But if someone compliments me or says something positive about me, I find it really quite hard to believe. And I don't allow myself to take it in just like a negative comment about myself. Like, I'll take a negative comment in 100%, and I'll sort of brush past the positive ones. And so even when I do communicate with other people about how I'm feeling and I get these responses back, like, I still do find it hard to completely believe. And it's your brain can also say like, oh, well, those people might say that they experience the same thing as you, but they probably don't. You know, it's like so easy for your brain to make you feel like you're alone. But I think that the best thing you can do is like do your best to communicate with other people. And it doesn't always 100% work first time, but I will say that my savior is communication, always, is talking and listening to other people and hearing them say things that you experience. And sometimes I will talk to people and it's literally like they're telling me my story, but it's about them. It's kind of crazy. And those moments are really, really special. Kind of like how I mentioned before, how when I feel very ungrateful for the things that I have and the things around me, I typically like to write a gratitude list, and it really does help me put everything into perspective, and it really is very helpful just to see a list of everything that I have that I overlook and I shouldn't, and I should be so grateful for, and I feel very ungrateful for them. Writing a list down of all of those things is extremely helpful, and I feel like I want to start doing that with my appearance, because I have never written anything down on my gratitude list where it's like, I really love my eyes, or I really love my cute crooked teeth, or I really love my butt, or whatever, you know, like I've never done that. I've never written a gratitude list about everything I love about myself, and I think that would be a really interesting experiment to see if it works just as well as a gratitude list for things that you have around you. So I'm gonna try that, and I'll let you guys know how that is. And I think that if you want to do one as well, that would be really nice. But basically just write down a gratitude list of all the things that you love about yourself. And I think that the act of writing things physically down with a pen and paper is a really like special ritual and moment. And I know that when I do it for the things that I have, like family and a house and a bed and all of that, like I feel myself becoming more and more grateful for everything I have, and I become less comparative to others, and I become less jealous and weird around other women, because I'm able to like really focus on the things that I have that I should be so appreciative for. And I feel like I want to do that like with my appearance, because why not? You know, it really, really works when I do it for the external things around me. And I think it would be really nice. It'd be interesting to see if, you know, if I start writing down the things that I love about the way I look, like, is that going to make me feel more confident? I have no idea. I haven't done it yet. But I do think that's something that I would like to try. I'm probably going to do it right when I log off of here. And yeah, so I just wanted to say again before I leave that if you're feeling this way, you're not alone. Everyone has some sort of issue with the way that they look. Unfortunately, it's just our society makes us compare each other all the time, makes us wish we had the things that we do not, because that's the way that the society works. That's the way that our society works, because it wants to sell us creams and makeups and dresses and cars to make us feel better. A lot of the things we spend our money on are purely unnecessary and are purely just to make ourselves feel better, like a lot of clothes and cars and expensive things. Like all of those things are completely unnecessary, but society needs us to believe that we need them to make us feel better so that they can make money, you know? So it's natural that we would feel this way, and it's natural that we would compare each other, but I just want to say that you are beautiful, and I know that I'm going to get out of this spiral. And I just wanted to say that if you're feeling this way, you're not the only one, and I really, really understand it. And I encourage you to make a gratitude list about the way that you look and all the things that you love about yourself, because I think that would be actually really helpful, and I'm going to do it too. But I love you guys so much, and I'm going to talk more on this subject because it's such a huge thing in my mind all the time. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about it today. But I love you guys very much. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It's super helpful to me, and it will be super helpful to you because you can see every time I post. But I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Okay, love you. Bye.